Howdy, folks. In action on the Green News Network. And with a hat tip, as we always do, to Gil Scott Heron, a reminder that the revolution will not be televised, but it will be brought to you over non-corporately filtered sources of news, information, and analysis like the Green News Network. I host this program every Monday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern on the Green News Network, my show called Democracy in Action. This week, Timeka Drew of the Liberty Tree Foundation for the Democratic Revolution is joining us again. Timeka, welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, Timeka, I just want to say that the last time we talked, you were pregnant and expecting and gearing up for the Democracy Convention. So you've had a little change in your own life, haven't you?
That's right, I have. My little baby girl, Amaya, and I are really excited to be heading out here. We're going to get on a plane at about 6:30 in the morning on Wednesday to be there in Minneapolis to build with everyone. So I kind of want to represent all the mothers out there.
Well, I am so sorry to report I am personally having a hard time hearing you. I'm not sure if Michael can help us, our technical director.
Can you hear me now? I'm not starting to sound like a bad.
Oh my goodness!
Great.
You're back. So
I'm back.
I can tell you what we do here is that Amaya is happy and healthy, and you and Amaya will getting on a plane Wednesday morning to come on out to Minneapolis, and we're really excited about not only having you back in the movement and at Liberty Tree, but also excited to have you as the National Director of Liberty Tree rolling into the Democracy Convention. So for folks who, and I'll ask Technical Director Michael O'Neill to make sure to put the URL for the Democracy Convention in the comments section. And I'm going to give you an opportunity, Timeka. Tell us, what is the Democracy Convention?
Well, the Democracy Convention is a place where all the different folks who are working within the democracy movement can kind of come together one time every couple years and build together, share their thoughts. This year we have 8 unique conferences and 2 skill tracks under one roof. So, the way that I look at the democracy movement, anything that we want to get done, whether it's a bill that we want to have passed, a garden that we want to start in our community, somebody that we want to get elected in our local area. All of those are seeds. And to grow a seed, we need not just well-fertilized soil, but we need the sun. We need a good environment with clean air. We need water. And that's like what the Democracy Convention is. It's allowing all of those things we need to grow this movement strong and to be able to grow up all of the initiatives that we, so passionately believe in. We're not going to be able to do that ourselves. We have to do that together. And it's a place where we can learn from so much about what everyone is doing and about what's important and the different ways people have been using resistance this year to fight back, but not only that, to build power in our community.
I love the way the Democracy Convention tries to bring together social change agents across sectors and across fronts of struggle and across different struggles. And it really is sort of a brilliant way, if I can say, to say, we know that there are people working on media reform and building a media movement. We know that there are people working on peace and nonviolence. We know that there are people working on economic democracy. We know that there are people working on racial justice. There are people working on education and student empowerment as particular sectors or issues. So each of these sectors or issues have their own conference nested within an overarching democracy convention. So I'm curious if we could just, I've been really impressed by the level of participation that you're getting. Why don't you share with us some of the people who are actually going to be coming and giving keynotes and or participating, doing sessions?
Well, wonderful. It's hard to know where to start, David, because we have so many amazing organizations and individuals who have been a part of this process. One thing that I will say that makes this convention even unique in terms of different people coming together in different organizations, in this planning process that had been careful, science and democracy, early on together, and not only planning their conference area, that we're making people together to create sessions that can have it's kind of unique in that way. David and I are actually oh, okay.
All right. So, Timeka, I'm so sorry, but I do know what you were saying because I do know that Timeka and I have the honor of introducing some of our keynotes. They include former Representative Keith Ellison, chair of the Progressive Caucus, and former congressional representative of the Twin Cities area where we will be meeting at the University of Minnesota. Keith Ellison will be joined by Dr. Jill Stein and Jennifer Epps Addison of the Center for Popular Democracy, and will also be joined. I think Matt Nelson is not going to be joining us. Who else is going to be there, Timeka?
Jacqueline Patterson from the NAACP's Environmental Justice and Climate Justice program is going to
That's
be
right. And so what you can see, folks, is for the keynote itself, we're talking about a former elected official who was with the Democratic Party's Progressive Caucus, a Green Party presidential candidate and leader who, by the way, has just returned from Korea on a peace delegation. And if you haven't seen Dr. Stein's report on MSNBC calling for diplomacy and to stand down on the growing drums of war, of the NAACP climate and racial justice component, and Jennifer Epps Addison of the Center for Popular Democracy. The point is, we're bringing together movement leaders and political leaders because we at the Democracy Convention recognize we need both.
That's exactly right. And that particular plenary session is about overcoming oppression and building inclusion. So, that is going to be what they're going to be talking about. And that is so important in what we're doing.
And so, again, we'll be watching the 10 seconds because Michael is correct. We get you for about 10 seconds, then we lose you. So I'll try to, as the interviewer, be a little more directive than I normally do. And I got you, Chakravarti asks, what is our take on having a referendum vote on healthcare policy? And I'll use this as to set you up, Timeka, if you can answer that question very briefly, speaking for Liberty Tree, but to tell Chakravarti as well as others, we have a number of sessions on healthcare as a human right. We have a number of sessions about using statewide and local initiatives to advance any number of different projects. So, Timeka, what do you think about the idea of referendums on healthcare policy?
I think it's incredibly important, but also, as you stated, David, it's important to look for other alternatives like in our local communities and what we can be doing to actually strengthen the healthcare that we so deserve and that we expect.
And Chakravarti, I want to really lift up your great question because the idea of using referendums, citizens' initiative is a really great way to exercise our civic muscle and to build our power together. I also, Timeka, again, with the reminder about it's only 10 seconds, so I'll set it up this way. I'm really excited about the opening session on Wednesday, where we have Chris Mato Nunpa, who is a Lakota leader, joined by Signe Haraday of the Million Artists Movement, who works very closely with Black Lives Matter here in the Twin Cities, also joined by Medea Benjamin and a host of other people. So tell us a bit about that opening session and what you hope to accomplish.
Well, I know that opening session is going to be a lot of framing, letting people know what we can expect with the conference, welcoming people, and talking about the importance of really working together and making sure that all of our frontline communities, the people targeted, are able to be in our leadership roles and telling us.
So again, you began to cut out on frontline communities. So I'll just say, because I know you and I could tell where you were going, that it's not just a framing, it's also centering frontline communities. So we also have Sherry Honkala of the Poor People's Economic Human Rights Campaign as part of that opening session. Of course, she spent many years and helped to form, at the time, some of her work was actually in the Twin Cities. And so she'll be there. And it's important to recognize that Sherry Honkala is a houseless person's advocate, a poor person herself who continues to organize poor people, and was not only the National Organization for Women and Ms. Magazine's Woman of the Year as an activist, but has gone on to be the vice presidential candidate for the Green Party and has run for state legislature in the 197th state legislative race. So, and of course has a arrest record for social justice that is literally, without par. So Sherry is unique because she actually does movement work, direct action work, direct provision of service and getting houses for houseless people, and electoral politics. I mean, she really is a unique example of the kind of we do it all social change agent.
It's true. And she's a mother. And so, she tells us that we don't always have to look, we can look, our movement looks a lot of different ways. We don't look just one way.
That's so true. And the fact that Sherry as a mother, you, of course, as a mother and building not only an interracial, but also an intergenerational movement and movement spaces is so incredibly important. I want to now turn to John, who asked, what is the Green Party doing to counter the rise of the alt-right? Many young people are being influenced by them. So I'll remind you, it's only 10 seconds, so I'll frame it out a little bit for you, Timeka, and then turn it to you, because for me, one of the things that I'm doing is working with Melissa Figueroa on movement schools for revolutionaries that are actually teaching a Gramscian understanding of this conjuncture moment and the crisis that is presented and the real danger of the rise of actual fascism. Because I think that we make a mistake if we just call them the alt-right, because that takes away from what they really are, which is a fascist ideology merging corporate culture with taking over government and the military, and a incredible dose of white nationalism and white supremacy and homophobia and nationalism into it. So I think it's critically important for the Green Party to be clear and unequivocal, calling out the reality of white supremacy and capitalism together, and patriarchy as well, and being a beacon and winning people over. Timeka.
It's so true. We have to not only accept and lift up the targeted leaders to tell us what to do in these communities, but we have to reject. And at the Democracy Convention, we have a track for overcoming oppression and building inclusion that specifically has been session.
So I'm going to let you know, Timeka, and I'll actually do it in the 10 seconds. So where we lost you, where you were just shifting to the Democracy Convention to tell us about a particular track.
Overcoming oppression and building inclusion will also include things like your movement school, David, that you've been working with Melisha about. And this 10 seconds is very hard for me. Sorry.
I understand. So the movement school includes both Mel Figueroa and Jerome Scott of the U.S. Social Forum, and University of Minnesota African American Studies Professor Rose Brewer, and Professor Walda Katz-Fishman of Howard University. So that there is an arc that comes out of those movement schools, but there's a lot of others that are very specifically on point. Timeka?
It's true. Like I was saying, we just have many sessions within that track that are talking about what you can do. One of the tracks from the African American Museum that is coming and has many artifacts that they're talking about, teaching historical artifacts about how to overcome oppression and build inclusion. So I'm looking
and again, we just lost you. So what Timeka is sharing is the Mobile African American or Black History Museum. It is curated by Dr. Khalid Al Hakim. I've seen it several times. It's really stunning. And it goes all the way back to actually hold or at least look at actual shackles where human beings from Africa were put in chains and brought over in this so-called Middle Passage, and material to really ground and force and confront us to acknowledge the actual depravity and horror associated with that. And all the way up through many of the rebellions. And I'm not going to call them slave rebellions. I'm going to call them enslaved peoples rising up, right? They're not slaves. They were enslaved, but they weren't slaves. They were human beings from Africa who were rising up. And what's so important is it includes art and culture and music, as well as political tracks, all the way up to rap and hip hop. And I do believe that there will be a section specifically on the rise of white nationalism, even in these contemporary times. And I know Khalid is literally doing not only curating the museum and the artifacts, but will actually do a session walking people through it.
Exactly, and that's the session that I was talking about, David. That is a part of the track.
And in addition to that, I think it's also amazing to look at the number of different organizations. I mean, there's Move to Amend doing things associated with the U.S. Constitution. We have World Beyond War bringing in Kathy Kelly of Voices of the Wilderness and Leah Bolger, formerly of Vets for Peace and now with World Beyond War. You have Medea Benjamin coming in. We have Michael Albert from Z Magazine. We have Anoa Changa from Media Revolt. We have Jackrabbit, who is coming in doing things on rebel cities. I mean, it really goes on. And I encourage folks to go to the website, www.democracyconvention.org, and click on the link. Timeka, how many sessions are actually going to be there over the course of Wednesday through Saturday?
We have just over 150 sessions in that Wednesday through Saturday through Sunday period. So it's really exciting. So much to learn.
It really is, and I am so glad to say that Ruthie wrote in to say Reg Flowers, who is with the Pedagogy and Theater of the Oppressed, as is she, have just finished submitting a session on images of oppression and how to shift our assumptions and clarify our interpretation of others. So the ability to incorporate and utilize art and culture and perceptions into our work, this is yet another example of the tracks on overcoming oppression and learning new skills.
That's right. And this convention is all about keeping an open mind and learning from each other as well. I think so often we come to these spaces thinking that we know so much about what we're passionate about, but this is a chance for us to kind of think differently about some of the assumptions that we might have in general all along democracy.
You know, I'm so glad you said that, because for me, one of the things I always try to remind myself, and I say it often, is I don't know what I don't know. And so when I come into movement spaces like this, I really am thirsty to actually be challenged. And yeah, I do want to share my thoughts, but I also want to hear new thoughts, and I want to see and check my papers and see if I can learn something. And, you know, as a mostly straight white man who is privileged in so many ways within this society, I'll also say and use this as the opportunity to remind all of us that when we are ever being critiqued, if we can always remember to try not to immediately get defensive, not immediately say, no, but, or anything else, but to just say, okay, like if I made a mistake, Timeka, I didn't do it on purpose. And so if I'm, unintentionally being sexist, if I'm unintentionally being homophobic, if I'm unintentionally saying words that are racist or otherwise my conduct is being perceived by others, I'd like to know that so I can correct it. So I try to always say, all right, I want to at least listen, see if I can learn something new about myself, so I am not conducting myself in a way that's inappropriate or challenging or triggering to anybody else. And that also goes, which is even deeper, I think, your point, thinking about new strategies, new tactics, new ways of thinking about movement building.
That's right, because obviously we're not doing everything correctly right now, or we wouldn't be in the state that we're in, right? We know that what we're doing is not working, and we need to have an overhaul. We need to have big changes. And sometimes we do that
Timeka,
online.
one of the things, and again, I'll let you come back to it. One of the things that I always say is, I self-identify and say out loud that I am a revolutionary, a nonviolent revolutionary, but I am a revolutionary because I want to restructure this society, because the society is currently racist, sexist, class oppressive, and these big corporations are going to destroy the planet. And the reality is the evidence of my failure is all around me, because this country is so racist, sexist, and class oppressive.
Well, and it's certainly not just your failure, but definitely I think in general, we have a failing of thinking we need each other, how much we need each other, especially within this movement. We can say
we do need each other. And one of the sessions that I want to lift up as well is by an activist that I've gotten to know a little bit, Samantha Priest-Stinson. I want to lift her up. She's running for Ward 3, city council candidate on the Green Party ticket in Minneapolis. She is a veteran. She is a mother. She's an African-American, and she is relentless in her demand for solidarity / intersectional analysis. She is so very good at talking about both race, gender, class, sexual orientation, and never, ever getting into what some call identity politics, or some call, or like, she doesn't pigeonhole any of it. She always comes back to exploitation and oppression of human beings, commodification of Mother Earth. This is always bad, and we need to literally shift the paradigm of how we do politics, how we do economics, basically how we are on planet Earth.
How can the people be back in control? How can we, the people, be saying what we want and actually working to get that? Right now, we're saying corporations and the government should do that. We have to figure out a way to have it back in our hands. That's what
so true, Timeka. And I do know that, there'll be probably 10, 12,000 people ultimately watch this. And I know that many of you, I hope, will come. Again, we expect over 500 people. I hope it's 501, and that one being you. That's right, you who's watching right now. But I also know that some of you, it's just too far to come, since we start next Wednesday night, and Thursday, Friday, Saturday is the heart of the matter. But if you're within driving distance of the University of Minnesota, it's worth your effort to get here for a day, 2 days. So Timeka, where can they go? What's the website or phone number to call for folks who might be coming in for just a day?
Well, anybody coming in for a day, you can email us at info@democracyconvention.org. Go to the website, reach out, and you can definitely come and register just for 1 day. Love to see you.
Fantastic. And, I also now want to shift a little bit, because folks are asking about what is Liberty Tree. They want to know. So, Timeka, as the national director of Liberty Tree, give us the 10-second elevator pitch, and I'll come in and know that I'm not going to interrupt you, but I'll come in, let you know what we heard, so that we can navigate this audio challenge we have.
Wonderful. Thank you. Liberty Tree supports the grassroots democracy movement. So we try to create tools, support campaigns, do everything we can to help local communities and national communities.
So tell us about who is on the board of directors of Liberty Tree.
Our board of directors is wonderful. We have our founder and president, Ben Mansky. Medea Benjamin is on our board. We have George Martin. We have Sarin Muliar, who is 5 and Massachusetts Action.
So we lost you at Suren Mudalar. So Suren Mudalar, would you tell us about him?
He works with Encuentro 5 and Massachusetts Global Action. We also have Karen Dolan. We have Victor Wallace.
And Karen Dolan is with the Institute for Policy Studies.
That's correct. We have Victor Wallace, and I'm trying not to forget anyone. Nancy Price.
So we have Victor Wallace, who is with the editor and I think original publisher of Socialism and Democracy. And we have Nancy Price, who is a co-founder and current president of the Alliance for Democracy.
That's correct.
And so that's the board, folks. And I also have and of course, Timeka Drew is the national director, the woman who keeps it all together. I have most of my work has been done so far through the No More Stolen Elections program. And so, Timeka, tell us about the No More Stolen Elections program. And then what I'll do is ask about each program area so you can give a quick 10 seconds on each.
Sure. Well, No More Stolen Elections talks about is a program where we focus on voter integrity, electoral integrity. And this year, and this last campaign, really focused on voter intimidation and voter suppression. And we did a lot of research in.
And I will say, and again, because we just about lost you towards the end, but to point out that Liberty Tree actually helped to create an entire program area where people who were having trouble could actually report those troubles before it happened. So this No More Stolen Elections program is clearly very much needed. Let's shift also now to the Global Climate Convergence program.
The Global Climate Convergence aims to bring all different types of social justice groups together to work on issues of climate, but also issues of just protecting Mother Earth and working on rights for all beings on the planet.
And what's especially interesting is that there's a long history of Liberty Tree's Global Climate Convergence working in various ways, doing educating, providing tools and resources. And I really want to lift up most recently the work of the From Earth Day to May Day actions in the spring of 2017 that y'all were involved with.
And that's actually what we launched with, was Earth Day to May Day. Every year we like to connect the dots between the struggle for the planet and against climate change and against the corporations ruining the planet with the plight of workers, safe working rights,
and so a point blank question, Timeka. Has George Soros ever funded Liberty Tree?
George Soros has not funded Liberty Tree, to my knowledge. As the national
and as Liberty Tree, and I know that it has not. And I just want to say bluntly, folks, not only has George Soros never funded Liberty Tree has never sought funding from Open Society, George Soros, etc. And I can tell you, however, there is a right-wing blog that during the height of the Wisconsin uprising that Liberty Tree was intimately involved in, the right-wing talking point was the Soros-funded Liberty Tree as an effort to use, frankly, fake news to undermine one of the key grassroots groups that were actually providing on-the-ground assistance during the Wisconsin uprising. So this whole notion of Soros-funded is completely made up. It's absolutely not true. All you have to do is a simple 990 search, and you'll see. I mean, like Liberty Tree has 990s. On the board. There is no Soros or Open Society money funding it. But what's really sad and pathetic is when progressives, like, it's fine to ask the question, but to state and assert and continue and perpetuate a right-wing talking point is particularly troublesome.
Well, and we're incredibly transparent. We're 100% funded for the most part by individual donations, and it's actually just kind of discrimination against members of our board and really just trying to get people about things that are not.
So again, where we lost you at, we're 100% funded by individuals and
those attacks are really just discrimination in a lot of ways against members of our board, perhaps saying that we have Jewish members of our board, and so they are being funded through this dark money conspiracy and all of these different.
I have seen, I will, and I'm glad you actually called that out, because I have definitely seen a very obvious anti-Semitic bent to some of these attacks, not only on Liberty Tree, but in around the left in general, which I find to be just horrific and particularly insulting. Timeka, we've come to the end of the program. I do want to give you an opportunity for some closing words. I won't keep you to 10 seconds. What I will do is this. When we start to lose you, I'll jump in and just say, we're losing you. Keep your train of thought, and I'll come back to you. So Timeka Drew, your final thoughts.
Well, just in closing, as far as dealing with the right and anti-Semitic attacks in general, they're dangerous, and we must reject, not just skirt around the issue. So, if anything, that is my closing remark on that.
So if anything, my closing remark
on that is that we must reject on face. With Liberty Tree, we look very forward to continuing to build tools for the grassroots democracy movement, and a lot of what will happen at the convention will help inform what we will need to continue to do moving forward.
So thank you so much, Timeka Drew, with the National Director for the Liberty Tree Foundation. I want to thank you for this fantastic conversation. I'm so much looking forward to seeing you, Timeka, and you viewers, because we are going to be live streaming, choosing one of the many sessions, literally almost 20, like from gavel to gavel, we'll be there. So come on to the Green News Network, and you'll be able to see session after session after session. We're picking, it's very hard to do, but we're picking the best of them. And with that, I want to thank Executive Director Mel Figueroa. I want to give a special thank you, as I try to always remember to do, to Michael O'Neill, the technical director and really political organizer, and really somebody who is able to not only do the nuts and bolts of organizing, but also the technology, and also has a keen political insight and organizer mind. So I don't mean to make you embarrassed, Michael O'Neill, but the more I work with Michael O'Neill, the more I appreciate him. And the fact that he serves as technical director is a great honor to me. I want to thank you, the viewer, and remind you the only way that we are growing this is by you commenting, sharing it with others. The corporate media is not covering this story. It's not covering the rise of the democracy movement. So it's up to you. Don't hate the media. Be the media. Join us starting on Wednesday evening for the opening session of the Democracy Convention and all the way through. In the meantime, thanks so much for what you're doing. Peace.